But I would say there's as much honor and integrity in this house as there is in any other institution in the country, including the bench of bishops. No.
On Breakfast Time tomorrow, how America copes with the parking clamp on the day that it arrives here. Comedian Roy Kinnear helps to celebrate National Smile Week, Jose Feliciano strums a selection from his latest album, and Patty Boulay reviews the morning newspapers. All that on Breakfast Time from 6:30. And immediately after that, at 9:05, BBC One joins Radio 4's Election Call. In the first of the series, Sir Robin Day puts your questions to Roy Hattersley. Election Call at 9:05. And this means that some schools broadcasts will be shown on BBC Two. Now, on BBC One, Jane Glover continues her series tracing the evolution of the modern symphony orchestra.
The London Philharmonic Orchestra have joined us again in Cheltenham Town Hall to illustrate how the orchestra developed in the closing decades of the 19th century and in the years before the First World War. The celebrated opening of Wagner's opera, Die Meistersinger. Now, Wagner wrote Meistersinger and also his great opera, Tristan und Isolde, right in the middle of the mammoth project which occupied the major part of his life, the cycle of 4 operas known as The Ring. When he returned to the point at which he'd left The Ring, which was the middle of the 3rd opera, Siegfried, his ideas about the orchestra had changed. He realized that the standard orchestra was simply not big enough for his musical and dramatic purposes. So, he demanded additional instruments, and if they didn't exist, he had them made. This is what he asked for. In addition to 3 ordinary trumpets, he wanted a bass trumpet. He wanted 3 tenor trombones, a bass trombone, and a double bass trombone. So this is going to make the whole bass line even richer and more powerful. Then, 4 extra horns were added to the 4 that are already there. But the players must also play specially designed instruments, sort of bass horns, if you like, and they're now known as Wagner tubas. Now, Wagner didn't just ask for all these extra instruments simply to make more noise. What he really wanted was a greater variety of tone color. Each section of the Wagner orchestra, the strings, the winds, the brass, is now treated as a band rather than as an individual voice. This makes it possible for Wagner to retain the pure color of the instruments, even in huge harmonic textures. So, with the 3rd act of Siegfried, which is the point at which he returned to the Ring after the gap of 12 years, we finally see Wagner's orchestral mastery at its peak. Now, if you're familiar with the Ring, you're going to recognize a lot of the themes in the bit we're going to play. But even if you're not, you'll hear how, despite the incredible density of sound, the various sections of the orchestra contribute their individual voices with amazing clarity. Now, you wouldn't think that with that massive orchestra, any composer would want to take it any further. But Wagner's direct successors, Richard Strauss and Gustav Mahler, both took it to even more extravagant conclusions. Strauss and Mahler were born within 4 years of each other, but they pursued quite different careers. Strauss made a brilliantly successful opening to his career writing symphonic poems in the tradition of Liszt. And in due course, he turned to opera. Mahler, on the other hand, conducted opera in Vienna for 10 years, but never wrote one. But he did complete 9 symphonies and left a 10th unfinished, becoming the leading symphonist of his generation. Now, what both these men had in common was their new and exciting use of the orchestra. Mahler is one of those composers who is instantly recognizable through the sheer sound of his music. Every orchestral color is abundantly clear. It's positively translucent. In his 4th symphony, for instance, Mahler uses the expanded orchestra with triple wind, which has become standard by this time, and he also introduces some rather interesting percussion instruments, like bells. But set against the Wagner, this sounds like chamber music. He distributes his melodies across the orchestra and accompanies them with just light chords throughout. Today, Mahler's music is more popular than it ever was in his own day. Now, Strauss, in many ways Mahler's rival, was also his opposite. He was an extrovert, born dramatist, and technically very self-confident. His fame was instantaneous, and there's at least one piece of his music that everyone will recognize. Also sprach Zarathustra was written in 1895. Now, that same year in London, a new series of promenade concerts was revived at the Queen's Hall, with the young Henry Wood, later to become Sir Henry, conducting. For just £1, the promenaders heard 21 items, played by an orchestra together with 3 instrumental soloists and 5 singers. The music was a mixture of ballads, instrumental solos, marches and waltzes, and the concert opened with Wagner's Rienzi Overture. This was Henry Wood's reply to the musical buffs who claimed that only a German could conduct Wagner. Well, today, the proms are known worldwide, and they're a regular feature of the British musical scene. Their history goes back beyond Henry Wood to the 1840s, when Monsieur Julien was invited over from Paris to conduct popular concerts at Drury Lane. There he had an orchestra of 90 and a chorus of 80. And when he conducted Beethoven, whom he revered, Julien used a specially jewelled baton and white kid gloves brought to him on a silver salver. For many people, Henry Wood's prom seasons provided their first experience of music, as did Augustus Mann's pop concerts at the Crystal Palace. Outside the capital, Dan Godfrey at Bournemouth and Sir Charles Halley at Manchester